to the Legally Speaking podcast. I'm your host, Rob Hanna. This week, I'm delighted to be joined by Nick Fuller. Nick is a partner at one of the UK's leading media and entertainment law firms, Simpkins LLP. Nick specialises in commercial and intellectual property. Nick is passionate about music and is an artist himself. Nick has released several albums, touring internationally. Alongside this, Nick also works in technology, providing advice on legal, commercial, on software licensing, e-commerce, as well as data protection. So, a very, very warm welcome, Nick.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. And before we dive into all your amazing projects and experiences to date, we do have a customary icebreaker question here on the Legally Speaking podcast, which is, on the scale of 1 to 10, 10 being very real, what would you rate the hit TV series Suits in terms of its reality?
Oh, I'm going to have to be really honest here and partly duck this question because I actually avoid legal TV shows deliberately most of the time. So I can't rate Suits, so I've never seen it. However, the one exception is the spin-off from Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, which I absolutely love. So I'm going to rate that instead. And was it rate the authenticity of it? I'm going to give it at least an 8, I think, because it's a fantastic show.
There we go. I love that. I love the fact that normally people say I haven't seen it, so I can't give it anything, and we just move on. But the fact you've then brought in another show and given it a high rating, we're all for that on the Legally Speaking podcast. So thank you, Nick. But we must move swiftly on because there's a lot we need to get through today. But we like to start at the very beginning. So would you like to tell us a bit about your background and how you started your legal journey?
Yeah, sure. So the very first bit of legal work experience I had was something that I arranged in a music litigation firm. And that was something that I did off the back of contacts I've had from making music. So I've had a career as a rapper making hip hop music, and through contacts I made in that, I got some experience in a music litigation firm. I, after that, applied for VAC schemes at several bigger commercial firms, ended up being offered a training contract at all of them, actually, and chose to work at Olswang, where I did my training, had a fantastic experience there. And I qualified into their media communications and technology department, which is kind of the flagship department of that firm at the time, and was in that department for a couple of years before moving to Simpkins, my current firm, to specialize more in entertainment and media industry work. And I've been at Simpkins ever since. I'm not going to tell you how many years because I don't like to make clear how old I am, but I've been here a while and I'm very happy.
Well, and you've done tremendously well. It has to be said, you've achieved a lot, and you are now a partner with Simpkins, as you mentioned, your current firm, which is one of the UK's leading media and entertainment law firms across a broad range of clients that you advise. But, this could include high profile artists, producers, songwriters, labels, publishers, managers. Sounds like the dream job. So what does a typical day look like for you?
It certainly is my dream job, but you often find that the reality is not quite the same as the dream that you anticipated. So it's not all glamour, I'm going to be honest. There's plenty of paper pushing, as there would be for any solicitor. But, typical example, today I'm speaking with an artist who's looking at doing a new record deal. I'm also looking at a possible acquisition of a music publishing company with a different client. So doing those kinds of things. I also work a lot with companies in the advertising space. So I work for a lot of ad agencies, and I'm also advising a tech startup, I guess you would call it. It's an NFT focused tech business, and I'm helping them with their launch and their strategy. So quite varied, and I'm very fortunate to have a varied and interesting practice.
Yeah, and it sounds fascinating. And the fact you mentioned NFTs as well, that's something I'm super passionate about and sort of in process of launching my own this year. And I think it's just an emerging space. And you talked a lot about, the start of your career, you trained with Olswang and you have a background in the technology sector. You provide a lot of legal and commercial advice, on the likes of development apps, websites, software licensing, data protection. Could you tell us a little bit more about what that all involves?
Yeah, sure. So, we really are experts in commercial law and intellectual property, and there are lots of different sectors in which that comes into play. And in the tech space, we help those that develop and build technologies to bring their technologies to market in the right way, to do transactions to scale up their business, so to take investment, for example, and also with managing their relationships with their consumers. So all of the kind of consumer-facing legal terms, etc., we can help with all of that. So it's quite a broad range of work we do with people in that sector.
Yeah, and it's fascinating, a lot of the work that you do. And we've had a range of guests come on the show. We've had international DJs turned partners that have started their careers. But, you, Nick, are a true artist. You've released several albums in addition to touring internationally. What were your experiences like there?
All sorts of experiences. I must say, I think I'm the only rapper/lawyer in the world. I don't think I've come across another one.
I haven't.
I'm quite pleased. And you interview lawyers all the time, so you would probably be the guy to ask. So yeah, it's an unusual situation. But I'm just passionate about music, particularly hip hop. It's what I kind of grew up on as a teenager and love to this day. And it got me into all sorts of other styles and sounds of music. And I've had great experiences doing that. I've worked with some of my heroes musically. I've traveled around the world, and balancing it with what I do as a lawyer has always been my path. It's been quite difficult because I began my journey as a lawyer studying at the same time as I was beginning to release music. So I did my first album when I was at law school, did my second one when I was a trainee, and I did my third one not long before I made partner in my firm. So it's always been something I pursued at the same time, and that can be tricky. I remember one particular moment where I was asked to do a couple of shows in Japan. I'm based in London, and I was asked to do a couple of shows in Japan, and I just couldn't say no because I'd never been to Japan and it was going to be an exciting experience. So I ended up I took a Friday off work, flew out to Japan, did 2 shows out there, and then was back at the office in London on Monday by lunchtime or so. Severely jet lagged, but also, absolutely thrilled to have been able to do it. So yeah, I've had some interesting experiences with this.
Whereabouts in Japan did you perform?
Tokyo and Osaka. So we went on the bullet train in between them as well. If I'm honest with you, it's a bit of a blur because I literally didn't sleep for the whole couple of days, as you can imagine. But it was super exciting.
So your Japan trip sounds similar to mine in the sense that I've only been to Japan for less than 72 hours. I went for the Rugby World Cup. It was a spontaneous when we'd beat the All Blacks and we were playing South Africa in the final. I thought, I can't miss this. Jumped on the flight, took the Friday off the work, went there, jet lagged, came back. Of course we lost. So I had one night out sort of day in Tokyo and flew back. So a lot of people say to me, well, what's it like in Japan? Tokyo, everything. I was like, I really don't have any idea. I'm so sorry.
Well, I'm pretty sure I managed to, in my short space of time there, experienced a mini earthquake, like a little tremor sort of thing. Saw Mount Fuji from the bullet train, and it was cherry blossom season, so we saw beautiful cherry blossom. So I remember thinking I've had quite a lot of the kind of quintessential Japanese visit experiences, but they just were in an absolute blur because it was in the space of a few hours, but it was a wonderful trip.
Yeah, and you mentioned heroes. A lot of people, you always say if you meet your heroes, you'll ultimately be disappointed. But, you've performed and you've met your heroes. Who are some of them? And, what was that experience like?
Okay, so I'm going to get quite deep hip hop here. So bear with me for anyone who doesn't know on earth what I'm talking about. But I grew up on 90s New York hip hop mainly, also UK. And there's a group called the Wu-Tang Clan who are kind of a, groundbreaking global sensation in the hip hop world, and I made a record with one of the members of the Wu-Tang Clan. I also made a record with Guru from a group called Gangstar. He also did a series of albums called Jazzmatazz, where he collaborated with soul and jazz and other artists. And these are people that I looked up to, real heroes of mine musically, and to meet them and then end up actually working with them was amazing. And I've done support slots where I've been performing at gigs with De La Soul, Cypress Hill, even Kanye West. Actually, I was on a tour with Kanye West in Australia once. So extraordinary experiences working with all sorts of big artists or kind of rubbing shoulders with them. And it's a real thrill.
Yeah, I mean, huge artists. I mean, some of my favorites you meant, it's taking me back to my university days, and a lot of my university friends who don't listen to the Legally Speaking podcast probably will be listening to this particular episode. So I'm like, wow, it's a Cypress Hill and all those others. So that's super, super cool. And that leads nicely on, because your stage name is Essa, and you released a single called Justice in 2020, discussing processing thoughts and feelings on George Floyd. You looked at it from the perspective of a lawyer and a black man. What was the significance of this, and did you have a message you particularly wanted to convey?
Yeah, well, I mean, the song came about because during those days and weeks following the murder of George Floyd, for me, like for many people, from the black community, it was just a very emotionally difficult period, and I had all sorts of thoughts and feelings based on my black experience, which may not be the same as everybody else's, but we all experience it in our own ways. And I had so much in my heart and in my mind, and just didn't quite know what to do with myself. And normally for me, whenever I've got a lot of feeling or a lot of thought, I write. It's almost like self-therapy for me. It's very cathartic, and I don't always put the product of what I write out there, but often I do, and it's kind of part of how I exist and how I cope with life. So I just started trying to jot down some of my thoughts and feelings about this hugely significant event, and then all the other similar events and what it meant. And in particular, I looked at it, as someone who is a lawyer with legal training. And I remember at university, learning about the Macpherson report and the murder of Stephen Lawrence and issues of systemic racism within the Metropolitan Police. And, I touched upon those sorts of issues in the song. And to be honest, the best way for me to I can't sum it up neatly, partly because there's such a depth of feeling behind it that it's even quite hard for me to talk about it, if I'm honest. But what I would say is people go and listen to the song, because that's where I tried to really express how I thought and felt about it. And by the way, that is not a sort of commercial plug. The song is a charity record. Every penny made off of it goes towards charities that support access to justice for black people in marginalized communities. So, I'm not saying that to try and get any money out of it for me or any whatever. It's not a shameless plug. It's actually a heartfelt plug, if that makes sense.
And we jolly well will plug it here on the Legally Speaking podcast, because it is, such a wonderful charity and very much needed. So absolutely, please everyone, make sure you do go and check that out, because it is all for a good cause, and it's great artistic work as well. Time for a quick break from the show. Are you a legal aid practitioner in England and Wales, specialising in civil or criminal legal aid matters? If you are, this message is for you. As a legal aid solicitor, you don't have time to waste on legal aid case management software that doesn't work to your needs. That's why Clio has developed a quicker, more accurate and affordable solution for legal aid solicitors in England and Wales. It could save you hours in your month, particularly when it comes to end-of-month invoicing and claims to the legal aid agency. To see how it all works, visit clio.com/UK/legal aid. That's Clio, CLIO.com/UK/legal aid. Now back to the show. Nick, you are part then, as an extension of that, of Power Up, an organisation which emerged following the murder of George Floyd. The organisation is aimed at boosting careers of black creators. Can you explain a little bit more about this, and how did you join, and what does it mean being a member to you?
So it came about following George Floyd's murder. A lot of industries, a lot of companies within the creative sector and beyond made shows of solidarity. They would put out messages saying that they stand with the Black community, etc. And within the music industry in particular, there was a plan for people to post black squares on their social media profiles just as a show of solidarity. And several people felt that was not enough. You know, it's good that everyone was focusing on these issues and had a desire for solidarity. But it seemed like a time for action. And an opportunity actually for action with a bit of momentum behind doing something to make a positive change. And that's the context in which Power Up was born. So Ben Winter, who at the time was at the PRS Foundation, worked with the PRS Foundation to set this up. And it's a program that supports not just creators, but also professionals, industry professionals. So in the first year of it, and by the way, it's going to run for 10 years, so it's going to really support the growth of Black talent within the music sector for a long period of time. And in the first year, they've taken 40 people in, and we receive training, we receive mentorship, networking opportunities, guidance, and funding as well for particular projects to just give our careers a boost. And I'm the only lawyer who's involved in this first year, but alongside me there are artists, writers, producers, managers, label owners, all sorts, people in the event sector, NFT specialists, all sorts. And the idea is for everybody to get a boost to their career. And it's aimed not at people who are at the entry level of their career, but people who are hitting that glass ceiling. That's what the whole thing is about. The idea that for Black people in the music business, there's often been this feeling of this kind of invisible glass ceiling where your ability to grow and thrive is somehow limited in ways that are sometimes hard to put your finger on, or sometimes are absolutely blatant and in your face. But the idea is to smash through that glass ceiling so that people can become, you know, the leaders of the music industry of tomorrow.
Yeah, and such, you know, great insights, and congratulations on being the first again on something, and, you know, all the meaningful work that's behind that. And you have previously mentioned you are passionate about the Black music space and helping others to benefit. Why are you so eager to promote the Black music industry? Well,
I love Black music. It's just I'm a nerd, and I'm a Black music nerd, I guess. I love hip hop, like I said, but if you love hip hop, it actually is a gateway into all sorts of other styles and sounds of music, and a lot of Black music, far beyond Black music as well, but still. And you know, with my African roots and heritage, it's important to me, and I've had the privilege of a great education and a lot of opportunities to pursue some of my dreams. And for me, you know, now being a lawyer and you know, really understanding this space and having some of the skills and knowledge to be able to help people, it's quite important to me that I help our community. So there are all sorts of people I work with, you know, in an informal capacity as well, where I just give them helpful bits of guidance and just help to kind of show them the right way and point them in the right direction, or connect them with other people to help them pursue their careers. And, you know, I do that within the Power Up program, and I do it beyond. So it's important, and it's natural, and it's the way things should be. We should all help each other.
Absolutely. I'm all for, you know, lifting others up and supporting one another in community. And it's great that you're doing such a phenomenal job of that. So back to your albums. When you did your last album, you know, an independent label put the album out. You wrote the contract for this. So how did you utilize your experiences of being a lawyer and specializing in intellectual property to assist you?
It was funny, really. You know, the label I've worked with for that album and a few other releases too, including the Justice single that we mentioned. It's run by a wonderful guy called Ali, who also works at Bandcamp, and we've been friends for many years. And we talked about maybe working on a project, him releasing some of my music through his label. And when it finally got to that stage and we'd sort of figured out the plans for it, of course, the normal next stage is to put it in a contract. And instead of him sending me his standard contract, he's like, Nick, obviously you should write the contract for this, rather than send me something and me have to, go through it. So it was a bit weird, but it was great. And it's nice to be able to bring together the sort of two different paths that I've walked. It's where they cross over. It's a beautiful thing.
It is a beautiful thing. And you've been so successful in blending the two, obviously your legal career and your artistic career. Would you ever go into performing full time?
Some people ask me whether I'd rather be a lawyer working in an office or a superstar rapper. And to me, that is a dumb question. I'd obviously love, no offense, I'd love to be a superstar rapper. But it didn't quite go as far as that for me, and actually, I think that's partly because I never wanted it to go that far, to that extent, perhaps, because I'd always had the ambition to become a lawyer. And there's something about being a lawyer that's very important to me. I'm the first lawyer in my family. And not the last. My brother is a lawyer as well. And there's something about that was really important to me, especially, and I can't articulate it very clearly, but especially with my African heritage, there's something about it that was really important. So I wouldn't really want to give it up in that way, and never really did. I just always felt I could try and pursue both to the fullest extent I could. Now, obviously, we've talked a bit about some of the successes and the highlights of all of that. There's also the opposite. There's times when I've not been able to go on a tour for a couple of months because I can't take 2 months off my job and then come straight back to it in a straightforward way. I remember being a trainee actually and being offered a tour with a group called Jurassic 5, and I was going to go across Europe with all of them. It's like, well, I don't get a couple of months of holiday. I can't just take all my holiday, and so it's tricky to juggle things, and it can be stressful, but it's rewarding. And in truth, I do less as a musician now than I used to, as my job as a lawyer has become more and more demanding in a way, but also just I've been more involved, just more active as a lawyer. And I'm a father. I have 3 children. So juggling all these things together is a bit of a challenge, but that's the path I've gone down. And I love the balance of when I might be getting a little bit bogged down in some of the technicalities of legal work. It's nice to take a short break and just do some creative writing. Use left brain, right brain. I forget which one is which, but it's nice to try and use both sides, and to balance things out.
Absolutely. And, as Cool Dad Awards go, a top lawyer in the entertainment media space through to, rapper, artist, that's pretty cool. There's not many people that can say their dad's done that, right? Particularly with some of the artists you've done. So you must be immensely proud.
I am proud and I appreciate that, but the cool dad thing, ask my son and he would never agree with you that I'm cool. So.
This is true.
It is what it is.
This is true. And you obviously mentioned the first lawyer in connection to Power Up. Do you actually do any legal work for them or anything associated from that from a legal capacity?
So part of what I do with Power Up is to provide legal training to the other participants. So we've been doing a number of kind of masterclass sessions where I'll go through different aspects of the industry and the legal issues and trying to give people a steer on those. As well as that, in a more kind of ad hoc way, I've been working with several of the other Power Up participants to just give them a steer, give them a bit of a sounding post really on legal issues, just to help them figure things out. And that's actually grown into a fully fledged lawyer-client relationship with several of them. So I now actually am the lawyer officially for several of the people in the Power Up community as well. So that's part of what my legal relationship with Power Up is, I guess.
Yeah, and thanks again for sharing that. So, what next for Nick? You've already done so much, but do you plan to keep on making music? Just give us a bit of take us into the future.
So I write almost every day, literally, and I've got a lot of unreleased material, and there's material I'm working on right now. So I desperately want to put more material out there, and I've actually got 2, maybe even 3 album projects that I'm in the midst of working on. But it takes time to get those completed, and with all of my life as a lawyer and a father as well, I struggle to have the output that I used to have when I was a bit more focused on the music. But having said that, I'm featuring on an album by a producer called Farmer G. Used to be in a hip hop group called Task Force, who are kind of pioneering UK hip hop group. He's got a new album coming out, I think April this year. It's probably the next release that I'm on. And we shot a music video for that a few months ago. So that's the next release that's coming soon. Look out for that. And hopefully shortly after that, some more releases by me. Solo releases by me as well.
Yeah, exciting times. I can't wait. I'm going to be following eagerly. So there's a real good message in the discussion we've had today, because you have been so successful in managing to balance a passion of, obviously, you followed your music, you're artistic, but you've also balanced a highly successful career. And we talk about entertaining, educational, inspiring content on the show. This definitely epitomizes that. What tips would you give to people in terms of how you have managed that balance? Because you mentioned you're a father, you've mentioned you've got other things on the go. What are some of the practical things you do to make the balance work?
I think it works for me because of the genuine interest I've got in the area I work in. So sometimes I wish that my interest was in, I don't know, offshore tax law. I remember having a chat with a lawyer was he in the Bahamas or Bermuda somewhere? And he was like, how's work today, Nick? I'm on the beach wearing shorts and I'm probably going to stop at 2:00 to eat some lobster and go back to my mansion. And sometimes I think, I wish I'd have chosen to be a lawyer in that kind of space, but I chose to do what I do because I love music and I love the entertainment industry, and it's something I care about and I'm naturally interested in. So I'm doing business development and networking in a natural way, the people I want to connect with, because I want to ask them about what they're doing in the space and want to interact with them because that's what I'm into. And that makes it easier to make more of it. And I think also the 2 different pursuits I've got, making music and then working as a lawyer in this space, they overlap more and more these days. And I guess I've focused on that to try and make sure that, I'm pushing in the same direction rather than, pulling in different directions. And, a good example of that is my first manager, my only manager actually, is someone I used to work with many years ago, and I still work with him to this day. But instead of him being the manager and me being the artist, he's a manager of other artists, and I'm the lawyer that works for him or for them, and we do deals together and stuff. And it just shows that it's really about finding your lane and sticking with it and trying to be authentic to yourself, and it builds value. And patience is important in that, because it takes time to build that up. But over time, focusing on this, I've really managed to make a great career out of it and a good life from it, which I'm very thankful for.
Yeah, no, and thoroughly well deserved, Nick, it has to be said. And perhaps more specifically, what advice would you give to our listeners interested in entertainment and media law, or even about the technology sector? Well,
for people that are aspiring lawyers within that space and interested in getting into those areas of work, one of the tips I would say is focus on the realities of those businesses and what makes those businesses work, rather than getting too caught up in the glamorous aspects of it. A lot of people say, I'd love to be a music lawyer or whatever, an advertising lawyer, because they think those industries are kind of exciting and buzzy, and they are, but there's also plenty of hard graft and, a 90-page contract is a 90-page contract, and it can be somewhat dry sometimes, going through that with a fine tooth comb, whether it's to do with exciting music industry project or something that you might find a little more bland. So you have to really focus on the realities of it and appreciate and understand and enjoy the technical aspects of those industries and the ways in which they work to really operate in them in the right way. So that's my tip. Be really into it. Don't be superficially into it.
So, Nick, you did mention you've obviously joined Simpkins. What was important for you when choosing to make that move to the next firm, and how you could combine both your passions?
Well, I wanted to work at a firm where I'd get to do the kinds of work that I really had always dreamt of doing. So really hands-on entertainment industry work, working with creative people and with the business people behind them. And that's something that we do every day at Simpkins. But I wanted to work somewhere with really talented lawyers with a high level of technical skill, so that I could learn and develop and learn from them. And I also wanted to work amongst people who would appreciate the other sides of what I do, my creativity, what I do as a musician, all of that. And Simpkins, ticked all of those boxes. One of the people that was interviewing me is my fellow partner, Ed. He's got several MOBO awards, I think, and other awards for production and work he's done in the music industry as a creative. I've seen our managing partner play the piano, and he's excellent at that, and several others as well. There used to be a firm band actually that would play at some of our events and things. So plenty of people who really creative in their own right, and that's something that showed to me that what I do in the creative space would be appreciated, and that I'd be valued for who I am. And my other pursuits are an asset to the firm rather than something that would detract from what I do as a lawyer. And so that's been great at Simpkins. And that's something that I now handle part of the recruitment process at the firm. I do a lot of work with our trainee recruitment, for example. And we do value the other experiences that people have had. By the way, you don't have to be like a singer or a guitarist to get a job at Simpkins. You don't have to have any of those other pursuits, but we do appreciate people from different walks of life and who have different skill sets, and we consider everybody on their merits. So it's something that's really important to us at the firm.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's a phenomenal firm for people, particularly if you are interested in, the entertainment and media space, because of the quality of work and the fact that, you do allow that balance for people, to come in and follow their passions and support that. I think it's really important people really think about what they want from their career inside and maybe outside of the law. But I would highly recommend a firm like Simpkins if people were thinking of, particularly if you have those passions, checking them out.
Absolutely.
We've talked a lot today, and absolutely rightly so, around Power Up, and I'm sure this would have inspired a lot of people. So how can people get involved, and is there a deadline for potentially trying to get involved?
Yeah, so this second year of Power Up is launching, and it's open for applications right now up until the 17th of February. And you can go to the PRS Foundation website. If you search PRS Foundation Power Up, search that, you'll get there. And this is open to Black people, including people like me who are of mixed heritage, operating in the music industry, whether you're a creative or you're an industry professional of some sort. And this is a potential way of boosting your career. And it's been a real boost for my career and for the rest of the cohort I work with there. And, do look into it if you fit that description.
Yeah, no, and I would encourage people most definitely to do that. And if people then, Nick, before we look to wrap up, want to follow you or get in touch with anything we discussed today, I suspect there might be quite a few. What's the best way for them to contact you? Feel free to shout out any social media or web links. We'll also make sure we share them with this episode for you too.
So if you're interested in what I do as a musician, the easiest place is to go to my Instagram, which is at Essa Hip Hop, ESSA Hip Hop. And if you want to check out what I do as a lawyer, you may as well start with my other Instagram as well, which is at Nick Eziefulla, NickEziefula. That's me. So you can find me on either of those profiles, and they'll all lead towards me, and you'll find all the stuff that I do there.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Nick. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation today. It's been a real pleasure having you on the show. From all of us on the Legally Speaking podcast, wishing you tons of continued success. Not that you need it with your career and all your future pursuits, but for now, over and out. This week's review comes from Maddie Pars. 5 stars. Love it. Highly recommend. Maddie, we really appreciate your kind words. Simplicity at its finest. We really appreciate you. Thanks so much once again.